It's been a few weeks since the accident, and it was time to take the eye patches off. I've had them on for over a week and a half now, and I was so eager to see again. The patches were removed, but things were still blurry. The doctor had already told me that I would have trouble seeing for a little while. I took a taxi home and was able to get myself inside just fine. I decided to take a nap that when I woke up, my eyes would be a little more well-adjusted. I fell asleep on the couch and ended up sleeping through the whole night. I woke up the next morning and my sight had vastly improved. I went outside to check my mailbox. I made it out the front door and noticed my neighbor staring at me. I wished him good morning. No response. John just kept staring at me. Weird, I thought to myself before walking to my mailbox. As I was getting my mail, a car drove by and the driver was staring right at me. He followed my gaze to the point that I thought he was going to crash his car. This scared me, and I quickly retreated back into my house. I tried to shake what just happened, so I decided to turn on the TV. It switched on as I was in the kitchen getting a cup of coffee. I thought that I had accidentally muted it because there was no noise. I looked over and the news was on, but the anchors were just staring into the camera. As I walked closer to the TV, the anchors followed my gaze. No words, no expressions on their faces. Just lifelessly staring at me. Scared, I grabbed the remote and turned on the Netflix. I turned on a movie to try and get my mind off of this. Again, just silence. I looked back to the screen to see all of the actors just staring at me with the same blank expression on all of their faces. What the hell is going on? I shouted. This was a scripted movie that was filmed years ago. How is this happening? Their gaze followed me all the way around the room until I finally turned the TV off. It's now been 2 weeks since the patches came off. I'm sitting alone at my computer, afraid to look at anything that may include people to look at me. No one has spoken a word since the patches came off. No one has done anything except stared at me. I can't do this anymore. The stares are too much. I even tried to put the patches back on, and I can feel them looking at me. Please make it stop. I look down at the fork in my hands. This will be the last thing these eyes see.
I'm starting to wonder if my Uber will ever come. My battery is dwindling, and I'm standing all alone outside of a club on the edge of town. It is closed for the night, and everyone has gone home. But while I wait, let me tell you what happened. So, this club has gotten a new life in recent years as a sort of revitalized hipster dive. It was once a biker bar, almost closed down after a slew of stabbings, and was reborn under new ownership. You know the kind of place. PBR and Fireball for $5, a couple of old school arcade games, a string light on a patio, American spirits for sale and a cigarette machine. If you got $1 for every beard, glasses, and plaid combo you saw, you'd walk out of there with enough money to hit one of the classier joints in town. My friends and I decided to stay until last call. The bar staff were out of there quickly as we exited, and I realized I had left my cigarettes on the back patio. I told my buddies not to wait up, and I jumped the fence, grabbed the pack, and came back out to an empty parking lot. The silence was eerie. I couldn't even hear the sounds of the city. I made my way across the lot towards the car and fished my keys out of my pocket. As I got closer to the vehicle, I clicked the unlock button on my key fob. The interior dome light slowly turned on. Did I see what I think I just saw? In the back seat? I thought I saw a shadowy figure there, but I was too far away to be sure. I instinctively clicked the lock button. The lights went out. About 20 yards away, I clicked the unlock button again and the dome light slowly lit up the inside. There was no mistaking it. Someone was sitting back there. The silhouette was all wrong, though. Clearly human of some kind, but like the skull was 50% bigger than average. The head was crooked. The eyes were white and big, like glowing ping pong balls, as the thing in my backseat smiled at me and stared. A large nose parted the veil of black, wet hair that cascaded down its face. I instinctively locked the door with the remote, and the car went dark. I darted back to the club, looked over my shoulder the entire way, but nothing followed. I was more than a little buzzed, and past experiences had led me to mistrust the police, so I decided to get home and come back during the day to get my car. Surely, this was just all my imagination, right? I received an alert on my phone that my driver would be arriving soon. The driver had long black hair, and their face was obscured in their photo. Across the parking lot, my headlights turned on.
I am 16 years old, and my friends have always been telling me how I should explore the deep web. I always heard bad things about the deep web, so I told my friends that I never wanted to do it. Until that one day. I was bored, and out of curiosity, I decided to go on the deep web. I said to myself, it's online, I'll use a VPN, what's the worst that could happen to me? That night, I researched about getting into the deep web, and after following a few steps, for the first time in my life, I was inside the darkest part of the internet. At first, there wasn't anything too bad. But then this one video popped up telling me that it's a special invite for me. So, I clicked on it, and it brought me to a page with a blank black screen. I sat there for some time and it's still a blank screen. So, I decided to exit out, but right before I do, a person appeared on the screen. The person had a mask on. They showed up a sign that said, "Who should we kill next?" The chat box went crazy, and everyone was naming different people's names. Then the video ended. I said to myself, this is so stupid and waste of time, they were just trying to scare people. So, I went to exit out again, and like before, another video came up. I stared at the video and thought to myself, this looks very familiar. As the person holding the camera moved closer to a house, I realized that it was someone I knew. It's someone I used to go to school with. His name was Ben. The person went to the door and knocked on it. I was like, there's no way this can be true. Ben only lives with his dad. The door opened. It was Ben's dad. He said, "How can I help you so late at night?" And the person behind the camera stabbed Ben's dad and walked inside the house. With my face left in complete shock, I quickly grabbed my phone and called Ben. No answer. I called him again and he picked up. I told him that somebody was in his house. He laughed at me and told me he would call me back later because he was busy. But right before ending the call, he heard a noise downstairs. He then started to get a little scared and asked me how I know someone is in his house. I told him, I went on the dark web and the person was recording themselves in your house. I even told him that they killed his dad. Scared to death, he went under his bed to hide and call 911 as soon as he can. Ben was unable to make the call as the person with the camera entered into his room and looked around for him. They couldn't find Ben, so they started to walk out of the room. Right before they did, Ben's phone went off. The guy behind the camera looked under the bed to where Ben was hiding and put the camera down. I heard Ben screaming through the phone and then the phone call ended. I tried calling back several times, but no answer. Later that night, police arrived and investigated Ben's house. They found out that Ben and his dad was killed. I felt like I should tell the cops, but I felt kind of responsible for their death, so I decided not to say anything. I told myself to stay off the deep web. It was nighttime and I was getting ready to sleep. But before I went to bed, my computer turned on to that blank black screen. I went over to my computer and tried to shut it off, but it wouldn't turn off. I started to panic and tried disconnecting it, but it still stayed on. Then the camera came up. And this time, it was at my house. The camera turned to the man in a mask, and he put his finger over his mouth and said nothing. I ran downstairs to tell my parents and they called the police. The police came and they unfortunately didn't find anything. I promised to never ever go on the deep web again. It's still hard for me to sleep to this day. The person was never caught. Who knows where they might be?